money lines will rise up from the head and spine line, travel up towards the mercury finger, the pinky finger. These lines will reflect how many income streams you'll experience at any given time. The timeline starts at around age 20 at the head and spine line, and when it transverses that heart line, that's about age 45. In the area between the top of the heart line and the bottom of the little ring around the little finger is the late 40s and up into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and beyond. There's a timeline that runs up through that. Now, these are any income streams from jobs you have or spouse's jobs, investments, inheritance, or any money that comes into your household. And you've got to count student loans, anything that increases your income into your household. Later on, we'll show you how to correlate these lines with the achievement lines and the fate line. And if you'll pull up the right hand image, you can see those red lines that go from the headline up towards that pinky finger, or that mercury finger. These are your income streams. And then we've put the numbers over on the hand chart. So from age 20 to 33, you actually have multiple lines. You have a lot of different starts and stops. It's a little bit chaotic. And then it kind of settles down there around age 33, where you have 3 lines. From 33 to 45, that's 3 income streams. And then from 45 to 47, you have 2 lines. That's where that crosses that heart line. Then from 47 to 55, you have 3 lines. From 55 to 62, you've got 6 lines. Oh my gosh. And then from 62 to 69, there's 4 lines. From 69 to 80, you have 2 lines. And then from 80 on up, you have 2 different lines, 2 different income streams. All right, moving on to your relationship and marriage lines. That area just above the flirt lines, just below the bottom ring of that mercury or that little finger, are your relationships and your marriages. These horizontal lines sit between the top of the heart line and the bottom of the ring on that little finger. There's a timeline there, and you divide these up into 3 sections. Now, coming up from the bottom, that first section is your 20s and 30s, the middle section is your 40s and 50s, and that third section is 60 and above. You'll read those lines beginning from the back of the hand, which is the start of the relationship or the marriage, towards the palm, which is later on. The lighter lines will be relationship lines, and the darker ones, the more prominent lines, will stand out and have a great density and color to them, reflect your marriages. So if you'll pull up the image of the edge of your right hand, and we're going to start right here with the relationship and marriage lines. Now what we've done here is in purple, we've overtraced the marriage lines. But it looks like you've got 1, maybe 2 little relationship lines there, and these are horizontal lines. And then we can see that first marriage line. It actually goes along pretty good, but then it just kind of fades out. But then you have this very strong marriage line, and it has a nice color to it. Goes along nice and consistent. You don't see any big breaks in it. Oh, you see some contention lines. We've seen actually a lot of contention lines on that first marriage, but you see 1 or 2 little contention lines on the second marriage. But then you have some really good upsweep positive lines on the top. So that second marriage looks to be a really good marriage. And then you've got a little relationship line above that. That's way up there in your later 70s. Now, in order to find a timeline on that second marriage, and we've marked this both on the right and the left hand on the hand images. If you pull up that left hand, you'll see it's a little Y that comes off of the fate line. And this is an opportunity to marry. And we've marked it on the left hand and the right hand. It's in kind of it looks like a little pink Y that comes up off that fate line. Now, whether or not you take this opportunity is up to you, but you've got one right there, right around age 36, maybe 37. But that second marriage line is a very strong line. It's a very kind and loving marriage. Now, the children lines come down vertically from the bottom of that ring around the mercury finger, and you count them from the inside of your palm to the outer edge. And these can be biological children, stepchildren, adopted, godchildren, or nieces and nephews. Any child that you build a strong bond with. So if you'll pull up the image of the right hand edge, you can see the green lines, they come down off that bottom ring of that pinky finger, that mercury finger. They're green lines. And you've got 3 very strong children lines there. And then you have a little gap and a bunch of little lines behind that. Those are grandchildren. We don't usually count those grandchildren in your hands. Those are better counted in your children's hands. But you have 3 very strong lines there as far as the children lines go. Good close bond. And we'll work off that chart and bring the other charts in as we need them. The first thing you need to know is that your left hand is your past. Your right hand is your present and future. It does not matter what your dominant hand is. Most of the work we do is on the right hand. Sometimes we'll reference that left hand. Before we get started, let me give you a little insight about palmistry and how the lines and markings are named. It's about 2,000 or 3,000 years old. Some say it's even a little bit older than that. And they've gone through and they've named all the fingers in certain sections of the hand. with names of Greek gods and goddesses, or with astrological names. So that index finger is the Jupiter finger, the middle finger or business finger is the Saturn finger, the ring finger is the Sun finger, some like to call it the Apollo finger or the finger of Apollo, the little or the pinky finger is the Mercury finger. That section there between the head and the heart line is called the Mars area. Another important area is the base of the thumb, that little fat pad. It's the Mount of Venus, the goddess of love. This will reflect your sexual libido. It also shows how well you're hydrated. And you want to see a little fat pad there so tight you can hardly pinch or pick up the skin. And you look like you're well hydrated. Okay, look down there on your chart where it says palm shape. The shape of your palm is your most important talent, and it looks like you have spatulate palms. This means that you're active, imaginative, original, and very often unconventional, but at the same time you can also be very impulsive and impatient. Okay, look in the upper right hand corner of your chart, and this is your fingertip shapes. They reveal your personality type. And you have round fingertips, meaning you're intuitive, quick, compassionate. You should actually be in the health field. Okay, now the length of your fingers in relationship to the length of your palm and other fingers are your talents, what you're good at. Long fingers mean one thing, short fingers mean another. No one gets shorted. Everyone has their own unique talents. Nothing is good or bad. They all have their good qualities. Let's start with the thumb. You have a short thumb. It means you work well with numbers. They come easy to you. You remember phone numbers, dates, anything that deals with numbers. A lot of accountants and mathematicians have short thumbs. Alright, moving on to the Jupiter finger. That is your index finger. You have a short index finger, meaning you're self-motivated. You work well on your own. You don't need someone guiding your every move or looking over your shoulder. Okay, your business or your Saturn finger. Now this is the finger that is the basis of all measurement for all the other fingers. It should be almost as long as your palm. And you have a short Saturn finger, meaning you're compassionate. You're very concerned with social issues. You'll give away the store because you're more concerned about your fellow man than you are the bottom line. As a business owner, you need to seek the help of others that have knowledge and experience in business matters. Now the ring finger, or the sun finger, some call it the finger of Apollo, is your creative finger. It represents your right brain. And you have a long sun finger, which means you're very creative, imaginative, inventive. Finally, your pinky finger, or your Mercury finger. This is your scholarly finger. It represents your left brain. And you have a short Mercury finger. It means you're a hands-on person. You're active. You get things done. Okay, we're going to shoot over here to the heart line. The heart line is the horizontal line at the top of the palm. It's just below the fingers and tells us about your emotional state and the physical health of your heart. And you have a curved heart line. It means you're loving and caring, very compassionate person. Now, your heart line also reflects the health of your heart. You want a nice, clean, consistent line without breaks or little islands on it. If you have these markings, that can indicate a little bit of stress on that heart. So if you'll pull up the image of your right hand, and you can see that very top line that goes horizontal across the top of the palm there. That's your heart line. And your heart line actually goes along nice and consistent. It has a nice depth to it, a nice color. You don't see any big islands or breaks in the line. Oh, you see a little tiny bit of fussiness there up there in your 70s or 80s. A little bit of stress. And you do have what we call these little triangles. We put them there on the hand in red underneath the line. Those can indicate a little bit of stress on that heart. But we'll talk a little more about that when we talk about the spine line and see if that's not a contributing factor. But other than that, it's a good, strong line. Now, I'll tell you how to double check that line. If there's anything serious, you want to look at the edge of your fingernails. And if you have any kind of a steep roundness to them, or what we call clubbing, especially if they grow over the end of the fingertip, then you want to look at the nail beds. There should be a nice pink color underneath that nail bed. You don't want any kind of blue or bluish tinge. Because if you do have kind of a bluish tinge to that, it means you're not getting the blood flow or the oxygen to the extremities. It means that your heart's actually working a lot harder than it should be. And if you have any of these indicators, you probably want to get a hold of your doctor and have them take a look at your heart. Alright, moving on to the sixth sense. The sixth sense is your intuition. It shows up as a nice little mound just under that index or that Jupiter finger on the right hand. And you want to see that nice little fat pad there. It's called the Mount of Jupiter. And you actually have a very robust Mount of Jupiter. It means you have a strong sixth sense, a strong intuition. So you always want to listen to that small, still voice in the back of your mind. This is actually your guardian angels communicating with you through your subconscious mind. And they're actually there to guide you. So always go with that first gut feeling whenever you have a problem or an issue and you're not sure what to do. Go with that first inclination. It'll never steer you wrong. Let me tell you how to use or develop that intuition. Whenever you have a problem that seems difficult to solve, Find a nice quiet room in the house, one without distractions, and sit down, turn off the lights, relax and quiet your mind. And when you're nice and calm, ask out loud for a solution to your problem. Then put it down and out of your mind and walk away for about probably 30 minutes and let your intuition and your subconscious work on that answer. And when you come back to it, you should have an answer. Listen to the small promptings, the still small voice in the back of your mind, and you should receive an answer fairly quickly. And this actually works really well at night. If you do this just before you go to sleep and let that subconscious mind kind of work on that overnight, you'll find that when you wake, you have a good answer to your problem. Okay, on to the headline. The headline is the horizontal line that spans across the middle of your palm. It sits just below that heart line, and if you look on your chart there, it starts in between the thumb and index finger, and it ends towards the edge of the palm just underneath that mercury finger. This line represents how well you use your mental energy. The straighter across the palm that line goes, the sharper you are. If it dips down just a little bit at the end, or even a lot into that luna area, that little fat pad that runs vertical up to that little finger from your wrist on the outside of your palm, it can indicate a little bit of depression or brain fog. And this is when your mind just doesn't quite work at its peak performance. And this can be related to other aspects, other markings that are around the head and spine line, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Now, as we examine your headline, and that's the line that goes right there in the middle of your palm, it goes horizontal across the palm of your hand, and it sits underneath that heart line. And your headline actually goes along nice and consistent. Has a nice color to it. You don't see any big breaks or islands in it. Now, when you get out on the end of the line, you can see where it dips down just a little tiny bit into what we call the Mount of Luna. That can indicate a little bit of depression or anxiety sometimes. Causes a little bit of brain fog or make it hard to concentrate. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the spine line, which is actually the same line. It's just some markings underneath. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But other than that, it's a good, strong headline. It means you have a really good use of that mental energy, a good clarity of mind. And also, it lends itself to your intelligence. You're very intelligent. Okay, now the spine line, which is also called the headline, reveals the health of your spine. And it'll show if you have problems with vertebrae or discs in your back. It will show if they are subluxated. And what this means is they're turned out of place, or they could be damaged, or you could have a condition such as scoliosis or a twisting of the spine. It starts right there between the thumb and index finger, or the Jupiter finger, and travels across the palm just under the mercury finger. Now, pull up your spine chart. It's called the Chart of Effects of Spinal Misalignment, and that section underneath the index finger, if you're on your spine line underneath the Jupiter finger, that represents your cervical spine, kind of that neck area, that 1C to 7C, and it goes down to what's called the Dowager's Hump. This is the hump that you see in older folks when they're walking around and they're kind of bent over there at the neck, just under the bottom of the neck and the top of the back. That's where your cervical spine is. Then the area just underneath that Saturn or that middle finger is your thoracic spine. This is your 1T down to your 12T. That's the back that goes all the way down to your waist. Then there's that area underneath the sun finger or the ring finger, and that's your lumbar area. This is 1L to 5L. This is kind of your waist and your hips. Then, of course, you go down to your sacrum and your coccyx to the tailbone, which is underneath that little or that mercury finger. Let me tell you a little bit about Kat has a master's degree in health education, and when she was going to college, she was developing her craft in hand analysis, and she came across a book from a longtime doctor, Dr. Eugene Scheinman, and he talked about how your spinal health absolutely shows in your hands. And working with Kat over the years, it's proven to be very real and accurate. And I always get a little chuckle when I hear back on some of the past clients that have taken their charts to their chiropractor or their physical therapist and having an evaluation, and the medical care provider was amazed how spot on the charts were. Okay, let's look at your chart. If you look over there on the left-hand side of your chart, you'll see an image of a spine. And we're going to start right at the very top part of that image. There's a couple of, if you pull up your spine chart, you'll see where we have that marked. And then on that hand image, on that right hand image, you'll see the little triangles. They're in yellow, and they go along that head line. And what this does is it shows when you have some issues with those vertebrae or discs. Let's see. Oh, you didn't say if you had any damage in that spine or not. They're definitely turned out of place or misaligned. So it looks like, and we're going to start right at the very top of the image. From 1C down to 3C, looks like you've got some issues there, kind of from the very top down to the middle of that neck. And then that 6C right at the very bottom of the neck. And then that 1T down to the 6T. That's kind of that upper part of that middle back. Looks like you've got some issues there. And then the 7T down to the 10T. There's something going on there. And then down in that hip region, that 1L down to the 4L. And a lot of times when you've got that turned out in the top part of your back, it'll turn that bottom part out in the opposite direction to compensate for balance when you sit and stand. And then if you go over to the right, you'll see the areas column, and that'll show you the parts of the body that are affected when you've got some issues in that spine. And of course the effects all the way over to the right will show you what kind of symptoms you can have. And I know that we had looked in that heart line, we'd seen a little bit of stress there. When that 2T is out of place, and this sits just below that middle finger, that Saturn finger, that can put a little bit of pressure on that heart. Makes it work a little bit harder than it needs to. And then we talked about a little bit of anxiety and depression down on the very end. That sits down there below that ring finger on that right hand, the little triangles that we have there. And that shows when you have that 1C out of place, especially when you have that 1C and 2T out of place at the same time, that really gets anxiety going. And then we see in your information you talked about having a little bit of adrenal fatigue. Boy, when that 9T is out of place too, that puts pressure on that spinal cord and can cause interruption in the signal getting through there fully. So you can look around the chart here and see if you have any of the other symptoms. And I'll tell you what we usually suggest when we see this is to get into a good chiropractor, or even better yet, a good physical therapist. See if they can get that realigned, get that energy flowing correctly down through that spine. Especially where you have that 1 and 2C out of place, you want to find somebody that knows craniosacral work. And what they'll do is they'll go into the roof of the mouth and they'll either massage or adjust those little plates. And that helps release that energy flow to get down through that spine correctly. We find a lot of times that when people get those realigned, that they just have a lot more energy, a lot more ambition, and they just feel a lot better during the day. So that's something to consider. And I've seen many of Kat's clients and people she's done readings for, they'll take these charts down and show it to their doctors, and it's kind of a funny story how people will come back and their doctors are just amazed how accurate these spine charts are. Now you also have a health line that correlates with the head and spine line, and this line represents your general health. It starts at the bottom, kind of center of the palm, and it rises up towards that mercury or that little finger, and it stops at the head and spine line. And it should be a nice straight line without breaks or islands. This shows the health of your gut, your stomach, your intestines, gallbladder, and the internal organs, and really more specifically your digestive system. If that line looks healthy, your general health is usually pretty good. Okay, now as we take a look at your health line actually goes pretty good up there towards that pinky finger. If you look on your right hand image, you can see these are just down below the money lines. They're kind of a lime green, a little bit lighter green line. And you can see where the line goes along and then it kind of overlaps a little bit. And that can indicate a little tiny bit of stress on those internal organs, on that digestive system specifically. But we've kind of seen that in that spine line down in that lumbar region. Once you get in there and get that spine adjusted and get that addressed, you're going to find that these lines actually clean up pretty good. All right, let's move on to your achievement lines. Now these achievement lines are small lines that rise up off the top of the lifeline, and they travel up towards that Saturn finger. The small lines represent your achievements, your successes, all of your wins in life, like graduating high school or graduating college also, marriages, having children, getting a new job, a promotion, coming into money, any type of thing, like winning awards, anything that's a win in life. Now these rise off the top of the lifeline until you're around age 40, and then right there at the bottom, it kind of moves to the inside of that lifeline where they rise up. Let's look at what ages your achievements are, and you'll find these numbers listed right at the very top part of your chart up there in purple. So you have achievements at age 10, 12 and 13 are really good achievements. If you look over on the right-hand image, down underneath that lifeline, you'll see this in blue. The ones that we have circled, we also outlined on the right-hand image. And these are the really good achievements. Then you have achievements at age 16, 18, 19, 21, 22, 24. A couple of good ones here at age 25 and 26. Then 27, 28, 31 and 33 are both really good achievements. And then 35, 36. Oh, you got a line of them here. 39, 40, and 44. Good achievements. Then 45, 47, 48. Good one there at age 50. Then 51, 54. Another good one at 55. Then 57, 58, 60, 62, 64, 65, 66, 67. Another good one there at age 69. And then 70, 72. Good one at 73. Then 74, 76, 77. Good one at 78. And then 81. And another really good one there at age 83. Now, something you must understand about these lines or any other lines that we quote an age on, and these are just approximations, you want to add or subtract a year or two from that age. For example, let's say we indicate like age 50. That could be age 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. We don't always hit the age right exact, but we come pretty close most of the time. Alright, let's move on to your guardian angels. Now, who your guardian angels are will show in your left hand, and your left hand only. If you've had a visit or some type of intervention or even an interaction with them, that will show in your right hand. So let's start with who your guardian angels are. Now, as we look in this left hand, who your guardian angels are represented by a line that runs parallel to the lifeline. If you look on your hand chart, you can see where the lifeline is. It starts up there between your index and your thumb and travels down your thumb or down around your wrist. And there's a timeline on that lifeline that starts at your earliest age and progresses as you grow older. Age 10 is right at the very edge of your palm, right there between your thumb and Jupiter finger, and as that travels down, you draw an imaginary line straight down from the inside of your index or that Jupiter finger, kind of that area right there between your index and your middle Saturn finger. That is about age 20. As you travel down the line to where that lifeline turns right at the kind of the bottom base of that thumb, and it goes around the wrist, that's right around age 40, and as it gets down around the edge of your palm, the outside edge around the wrist, that's about age 56, and then it goes backwards on around the back of the hand, and that's your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Now, where that guardian angel line touches on your lifeline is the age that you were when a loved one passed away. There will be a third small line that intersects that guardian angel line, and this shows who your guardian angel is. This is kind of showing where they passed away, and this can be grandpas, grandmas, parents, aunties, uncles, siblings, cousins, nieces, nephews, children, or close friends, anyone that you had a strong bond with. So pull up the hand image of your left hand, and you'll see these lines in purple. They sit underneath that lifeline, and then you can see where they touch on that lifeline, then they have that corresponding third line that goes across that shows the death of a loved one. So who your guardian angels are show at these ages. Ages 12, 14, 18, 21, 24, and 33. Now, if you've had a visit or any kind of intervention from your guardian angels, it'll show in your right hand. These are the same lines as in the left, but they run parallel to the lifeline, and they travel up and eventually touch on the lifeline. The small intersecting lines are not present in the right hand because that line reflects the death of a loved one. Now, these show a visit or some kind of intervention or interaction, such as if, like maybe you received a warning that caused you to avoid an accident or something tragic, or you're in a bad accident and survived, or if your guardian angel just come to check in on you and give you a message in a dream or something like that. And I really get a kick out of some of the dozens of stories that clients have told about interactions they've had with their guardian angels. And I hope you don't mind, I've got to tell you about this story. And it's one that really resonates in my mind, is when Kat was reading the hand of a little older gentleman. He was probably in, probably his 50s, and she discovered a prominent guardian angel line that showed in his hand right around age 40. And she asked him what happened here. Well, this poor guy got really emotional, and without hesitation, he starts to describe in detail how he was sitting at home alone one evening, and he's getting a little concerned about where his 16-year-old daughter was, who had gone out to a high school football game, and she was late getting home, and he was getting a little concerned. And he tells about how he was sitting in his favorite chair in the living room, and he glanced at a portrait of his deceased wife that was sitting up on the mantel, and he heard her voice clear as day. But this was more in his head than kind of audible, and it states how he needed to go out and find his daughter. So he called his sister, and they ran all over town looking for his daughter. They were eventually guided to this little mom-and-pop restaurant, where they got in there, and he saw his daughter standing out back behind the restaurant. And there were a bunch of guys on bikes, and they were riding around her and harassing her, so he went to his car and grabbed a baseball bat, and he went out and chased them off. Well, it turns out that his daughter had gone to get some shakes with some of her friends after the game, and she somehow got a wrong turn and ended up out back of the restaurant. So as this guy was getting his hand read, he was telling Kat this story, and his daughter was sitting right next to him, and she's nodding her head in agreement, and she's getting really kind of emotional. Kat then says to her, "Show me your right hand." And sure enough, his daughter had the same very prominent guardian angel line right there at age 16. So the lines matched up. So isn't that interesting? And we're actually going to publish a book in the near future with all those amazing stories in there. Okay, now, any visits from your guardian angels or any kind of divine intervention or celestial protection shows at these ages. Oh, and those will show in red on that right hand image. So it shows at these ages 15, 18, 21, 24, 31, and 33. Okay, we're going to move on to your fate line. The fate line, this is in your right hand only, reflects changes in your lifestyle or career, and they're really actually kind of interconnected. There's a timeline that starts at the bottom of the palm. It's right there right around the wrist, which is your younger years, and it travels up towards the middle Saturn finger for your later years. Now, whenever there's a break in that line, it will show a change in your lifestyle or career, and if you have more than one line, that depicts additional responsibilities like another job or taking care of someone or something like an intense hobby or maybe even a cause that you're a part of. Now, this fate line will also show how long you'll live in your present state of health, and this is barring any foreseen accidents or disease. Now, that fate line starts at the base of the palm and travels up, and if it starts right in the center, you're kind of a private person. If it starts on the outside, you're a social person. And your line starts in the center, means you're a private person, meaning you prefer not to be around a lot of people most of the time. Now, just because you're a private person doesn't mean that you don't socialize or that you don't interact with people well. It just means that by the end of the day, after having to deal with people, you like to kind of shut yourself off and decompress. Okay, now if you'll take a look down in the bottom right-hand corner of your chart, you'll see the fate line, and this is the line on your hand image. That's the green one that goes up the center of the palm, up towards that Saturn finger, that middle finger, and these lines represent changes in your career or lifestyle, and they're really both interconnected. So from age 20 to 31, you actually have a lot of chaotic lines. You have multiple lines, a lot of different starts and stops, kind of like you did with your money lines. But then at around age 31, that kind of settles down. From 31 to 37, you have one line with changes there at age 31, 33, 34, and 37. And then from 37 to 39, you have four lines with changes there at age 37 and 39. From 39 to 40, you have six lines. Oh, you're going to be really busy. You have changes there at age 39 and 40. And then from 40 to 45, you have three lines with changes there at age 40 and 45. From 45 and 51, you have three different lines with changes there at age 45, 47, and 51. From 51 to 62, you have two lines with changes there at age 51, 55, and 62. From 62 to 80, you have four lines with changes there at age 62, 69, and 80. And then from 80 on up, you have two lines. And then those lines go up there into your late 90s.